Hey everybody, thank you for coming to Shepaug. For those that don't know me, my name is Michael McManus. I'm the College and Career Coordinator here at Shepaug. I'd like to introduce the panel tonight. We have Heather Stone from Western. She's a softball coach. George Costellas from WestCon. He's the head soccer coach. We have Sharon Brennan, who is a education consultant. We have Caitlin Gillen, who is a student athlete who was recruited for UConn, I believe, right? First one?
UNH for field hockey.
Field hockey, sorry. Wrong person. And then her mother, Mimi Gillen, to speak about what it's like to be a parent of a student athlete. Okay, so who would you like to start, or?
Yeah, I think that'll be good. I'll just tell you a little bit about my background, and we all agreed here that we're not going to talk a lot, because one of the things that we decided is that your questions really bring out the heart of the matter in terms of things that you have questions about and what you're concerned about. My background is in college admissions. I was the Dean of Admissions at Sacred Heart University for 10 years, and then I was the Chief Enrollment Officer at Southern Connecticut State University for 20 years. I retired, and now I'm consulting with Stony Brook University on Long Island. I'm working actually with the school counseling office in another capacity, but a colleague of mine and I, about 3 years ago, developed a workshop where we go out and we speak to students and parents and counselors and coaches about college admissions and the student athlete. And the reason why we developed the workshop is we found that lots of people were concerned and confused, that it's a double-edged sword. You have a student who wants to be admitted to a college where they can get an education and succeed academically, and they also want to find a college where they can play their sport. And so when you put two things together like that, that makes it really, really hard, because it's a combination of two things. And we found that the NCAA was not tremendously supportive in terms of getting information out to counselors and coaches, and also to students and parents. They have a website, but God bless you if you go in there and try to find something. The easiest way to find it is to put it in Google and put the title of what you're looking for, and then you will locate it. So I just wanted to share that with you. There's handouts that you took. One of the handouts is something that my colleague and I put together, and we're happy to share it with you. And it's for students and parents, and it's searching to play in the NCAA. And sort of just basic information about how to go through the process of looking at colleges to be admitted to, and colleges also that would be interested in you playing. Obviously for D1 and D2, you have to go through the clearinghouse. D3 you don't. So I hope that helps. I also put out some other things. The latest and greatest from the NCAA Eligibility Center, and this is really new. Typically they ran the D1 and D2 information on the same sheet. There's two separate sheets because they've changed things. There's also information on something called the Institutional Request List, a fast sheet to get to the NCAA, making right choices with Q&As, which if you have questions later, I'll talk to you about that. And then we have a small sample of information on the academic index for the Ivy League college, in case there's anyone in the audience who thinks that that could be a D1 option. And I'll just start the conversation off that way, and then whoever wants to pick it up after that, and then maybe we'll get into some of this stuff when you guys have questions.
I've been coaching since 1995. I've coached at Division II and III level. I've also coached at a Federal Service Academy, which is a completely different recruiting process than a state school or private school. I think the thing that you have to understand the most as parents here is that the recruiting process really is about your daughter or son. We as coaches mainly want to deal with them. We realize that you're ultimately writing the check to pay for their school, but we would like to deal with them personally, because we're the ones that are going to deal with them for the next 4 years. So for a parent, the biggest not to do is we don't want to get emails from parents. We want to get emails from your son or daughter about what they want to do. And we can tell the difference between an email from you and an email from your son or daughter. So it's really important that they start that dialogue. I mean, we'll accept calls and conversations about the financial stuff and that, of course, because we know it's where you come in, but ultimately it's about their next 4 years. And we want to know that they can speak for themselves and something that they want to do. Because a lot of times they will get to the college level and realize that there's a lot more out there than their sport, if they've been pushed only to play that sport. So we really want to make sure it's what they want to do, for starters. And I think, just to speak to all the athletes in here, it's really your process. You know, it starts with you. And I believe it's never too late. Ultimately, your junior year is when you really should start. If you're later than that, it's still okay. There's a school for you. If you want to play, there's a school for you. You can find a place to play. You just need to do your homework. You need to make sure you're in contact with the coaches, that you know academically they have what you want, and that you seek out the coaches. We're not necessarily always going to seek out you. That doesn't mean we don't want you to come play for us. I mean, there's a lot of you, all right? And there's a lot of schools you can look at as well. Same goes. And the other email issue, if you're emailing 5 coaches, make sure I love when I get emails that say, "Dear Coach Pepin." She is the coach at Eastern Connecticut State University. I do not want to be called Coach Pepin. She's my rival. So make sure you do your homework as well. You know, and the same goes for us. We're not going to send you a mass email. You know, we want to make sure we want you, and we want the same kind of respect back. Just to kind of touch on the email facet. The other thing to realize is that visits. It's important to visit schools because it's ultimately where you're going to be for the next 4 years. It will change your life. You can go on as many unofficial visits as you want, which basically means you can show up on campus, you can go to admissions, all that you can do as much as you want. As far as official visits, which means the school is going to pay for some part of your visit, whether it be a meal, staying in the dorms, you can do 5 of those, and that's across all divisions, 1, 2, 3. All right, so you can only do 5 official visits. So just be aware that if you're looking at a lot of schools, or schools are starting to offer you or want you to come on campus, you can only do 5 official visits. And some kids get confused with officials versus unofficials. I'm trying to think of anything else quick. I think that is all I'm going to throw at you for the moment. I'll pass it to George.
George Costellas. I spent over 15 years at the Division I level, and what first name was Sharon. Sharon mentioned the Ivy League. I actually spent 10 years at Yale University, so I'm very familiar with the Ivy process. But just to go off of what Heather was conveying to you, first and foremost, you need to be proactive. You know, I was a youth national team player, had a significant background in soccer, and me being a naive guy was thinking that, oh yeah, these guys are just going to come knocking on my door. No, I mean, we don't come knocking on your door. We want to be obviously contacted, and Heather brings up a very valid point. It's very important that you understand that there's an identity, and writing "Dear Coach Costellas," or rather than coaches, and then all of a sudden in the to line we see like 50 schools listed. I mean, it's what we want to see is student athletes taking initiative and taking ownership of the process. And think about this, and the way that I convey it is, you are ultimately making a 4-year investment on the most important commodity, yourself. And if you were to make a 4-year investment, wouldn't you want some return? Wouldn't you exhaust every opportunity to get the most bang for your buck? So to take ownership of writing a cover letter, to personalize a resume, because there's a number of quote services out there that are going to come after you and say, hey, listen, for $499, and then if you want the platinum package, $699, we'll put together that video, and we will make sure that every college out there will get your profile. Well, they send that profile in a package with about 50 other profiles, and most coaches will take that and recycle it. Okay? Rather than getting something specifically from you. And think about, we're going to prioritize the athletes that are taking initiative to contact us. When I go to a recruiting event, rather than going through that profile and being like, wow, there's 50 athletes here at random, when Steve Jones writes me an email and says, Coach, I'm going to be at the AFC Showcase in Cheshire, will you please come see me play? Steve Jones is going to be one of those guys that I prioritize, because he's really sought me out. He's reached out to Western Connecticut. And as coaches, what we really feel is going to be important is we want athletes to want to come to Western Connecticut, not being that quote last resort. Hey, listen, I'm going to go to WestCon because it's just convenient. Okay? We want athletes, and I learned that the hard way. I mean, I recruited nationally for the University of Connecticut, and I'd go to the head coach and be like, Lenny, you got to get this kid, you got to get this kid, you got to get this kid. And they'd come on their official visits, and then eventually I'd sneak in afterwards and go up to Lenny and like, hey, how did it go? It's like, we're not going to get her. He's a Greek guy like me, and he's got that accent. And he's like, we're not going to get there. She's not going to come here. And I was like, Lenny, what are you talking about? Like, come on, we're a top 10 team in the nation. He's like, I want kids to come to UConn because they want to come to UConn. And it didn't dawn on me what he was actually conveying, because I thought we could get everybody. But eventually, now being a head coach, I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what? Now that I know what he means, that I want kids to come to play and actually go to the school. So when you make this investment, you need to do your due diligence in regards to what does it entail? Well, it means getting onto the environment, doing a campus tour, meeting the coaches, spending time on campus with that official visit so you get to meet the players, possibly attend a class, eat a meal or two. So now you're getting a full-blown approach to what it's actually going to be there. Another way to simplify this process to me, and again, this is just me, is personal happiness. Can you actually wake up in that environment and be happy?
Can I say?
Yeah, please.
One thing for parents and for the kids too is that you want to be happy in the school without the sport.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
If you got hurt.
Because if you got hurt or if anything happened.
It's called the broken leg test,
Okay. You
which
wanna
means would
feel-
you stay there if you
Right.
get injured, which is a
And
really
I
good
think
point.
you forget that because the coach wants you, you're never going to find a coach like this. And then you get there and something happens and you look around and it's not for you. So it's something to really keep in mind.
Good point.
No, that's a good point. I want to jump in. And just to go back to Division 1 and 2 and 3, she makes a great point, is that I think student athletes, young student athletes like yourself, get wowed by the scholarship factor. I'm here to tell you, there's more money in academics than there is in athletics. Get good grades. You will get more money that way than you will athletically. Because if you just think about that, even in Division 1, there's usually on a softball team, Alabama has 18 players on the roster. There's only 12 scholarships they can give. There's 6 players there they're paying full to go to Alabama. And that's one of the best Division 1 schools in the country. There's not that much athletic money out there, so don't be fooled. And just because, and from a parent's perspective, if your daughter gets offered $1,000 to go play softball at, say, Central, Connecticut, but she can pay, or say New Haven, because it's a private school, and she can come to Western for much less, is it that important for you to say she got a scholarship? It didn't save you any money, it's actually going to cost you more. So I think sometimes parents get caught up in that too, because they think that, oh, my daughter got a scholarship, where that might not be the best place for her. Athletically, there's plenty of Division 3 schools that are better than Division 1, plenty of Division 2 schools that are better than Division 1. It's not just about the divisions. It's really finding a school that fits for you both athletically and academically. And if you lost your chance to play, would you still be happy with your choice? And I think sometimes we get caught up in the whole Division 1, I want to get a scholarship. And to be honest, if you're a junior in here and you haven't got contacted, you're probably not going to get a Division 1 scholarship. They're usually done at this point. And if you are, they're looking at you late, which means they didn't really want you in the beginning. They're just filling you in because somebody else didn't come. And those are things to realize. And we lose kids all the time to Division 2 and 1. And it's like, I've been recruiting you for a year. They just came on because they lost their top recruit because they went somewhere else. Just things to think about.
It's really important. I'm sorry. No, please. No,
I hear from
no.
our students.
So I played field hockey for my first 2 years at University of New Hampshire, and then I transferred and played for Boston College. And I was heavily recruited by probably five or six schools. It was 12 years ago, so it's a little shady, my memory.
Seems like yesterday.
So I went on 5 official visits. I went to UNH, Boston College, Cornell, Brown, and Yale. And looking back on it, if I have any regrets on that process, I probably wouldn't have gone to the Ivy League schools, because what I say is the 2 best decisions I've made in my life so far is second best is playing field hockey in college, and first is getting a nursing degree. So Yale, the Ivy League schools don't offer nursing, so it was pointless for me to go to those schools, because I think in the back of my head I knew I didn't want to play there and then have to go to school afterwards to get a nursing degree. So I would definitely keep that in mind when you
So you
go
already
on.
knew you wanted a nursing degree when you were looking.
So
That's an interesting
So the
point.
Yale coach was who I love, who I actually ended up playing for at BC. She was like, you can do biology. We have a really good program after for your, I don't know, master's entry, you can get a nursing degree after your bachelor's degree. So she was pushing for that, and that kind of seemed like it was going to work, but in the end, I went with my academics over my athletics.
And I think this is a good example of how you have to balance this process. It's about being admitted to the school for an academic program and a good fit, and about also being able to play your sport. And that's where that broken leg test comes in. In the 2 universities I worked at, I met lots of students who ended up picking a college because it was a place where they could play, but they didn't really, in their heart and soul, want to be there. And it's hard when you're 17 and you've got a lot
It's
of
so
people
hard.
coming at you
It's so hard
to
that
make
first-
that decision.
Yeah, that first phone call when Maryland University, who are the reigning national champions, the coach is on the phone with you and telling you they saw you play, and it's like, oh my God, my heart was racing, it was crazy.
And for parents, it's intoxicating.
And they
You
offer you so
can't.
much, come down, come do this, and it's hard. And I think one of the good decisions I made is Maryland wanted me to come for an official visit, and I knew they were pushing me to stay for a Monday and a Tuesday, and I was going to miss school, and I had a lot of work and senior project, and my dad ended up having to call the coach and say, stop, she doesn't want to come. She doesn't want to come on this trip. She's being pressured. And I'm glad. I knew going to Maryland, I would sit the bench, she told me, for 2 years. Even though it was I would have won 1 or 2 national championships if I went there, I would sit the bench, where I knew if I went to these other schools, I would start my freshman year. So that's a big thing too. Do you want to play for a championship team, or do you want to play freshman
Or do you
through
want to
senior
play?
year? Or do you want to
Play.
redshirt?
Play.
Do you want to play, or do you want to, sit the bench with the chance of playing, but also win a national championship? So those are things to keep in mind too.
This is where I think it's very, very important, where parents, coaches can step in, and it's what I believe is called good counsel.
It
Okay?
you're right, it takes a team
Yeah.
and the team is the student, the parent, the counselor, the admissions counselor, and the coach. And if everybody works together, it's a beautiful thing.
'Cause
But if one player isn't honest or isn't working on the team, it doesn't work so well.
And I think it's very important. I mean, obviously your background was I would say you were a very good player, obviously, and you kind of know that. But there's players out there, or student athletes out there, that maybe their profile isn't so balanced, but they just have it in their mind, I'm going Division I. That's it. That's all I'm looking for. And the reality is that it's very difficult to play at any level. At any level, it is extremely different. And I know, being at D3, now starting, just completed my 4th season. I mean, there's a misconception that D3 is just a step above high school. No, it is a legitimate college level. And it's very difficult. So to get good counsel about what you said, do you want to play? What I would hope to hear is that, hey, listen, you're going to have every opportunity to compete, to get on the pitch, versus you're going to have to sit for 2 years. And I know when you're on that phone, or you're sitting in front of that coach, and they're like, well, how do you feel about it? Oh yeah, I can do it, coach, I can do it. But can you really honestly say in your heart, I'm going to be okay sitting for 2 years? And if you can't, it's not the right spot, because it's only going to make you miserable. And like I said, now think about personal happiness. If you can't be happy in that environment, the 3 things that I think are so essential, and again, for me, it's easy. It's school, soccer, social. Those are the 3 balancing acts that you're going to have to deal with when you're at that college environment. And obviously, if it's softball, it's, again, those are the 3 things, and you've got to have perspective on all 3, because if you're not happy, you're going to be miserable. That means academically you're going to struggle, athletically you're going to struggle. If you struggle academically, there's going to be no sport. So you just can't invest in one of those categories. So that team is very, very important. I approach recruiting very honestly and openly. And I literally tell kids that, even that I've met for the first time, hey, listen, this is too big of a decision for me to mislead you and misguide you. Who am I as a soccer coach to just sell my program. It's not about selling. If I was a seller, I would have gone into sales. I'm a soccer coach and an educator. So to me, I educate them about this process, and it's about the right fit. And there is a place for each and every student athlete, but they got to invest in it. They got to put forth the effort, meet coaches, get some honest feedback. Because if you go to your personal coach, they're going to be like, you can do this. And the reality is they might not be able to. You know who might be the best person to ask? Ask the opponent's coach, the rival coach. What do you think of me as a player?
Just to go off that, youth sports is big business.
Yeah.
I mean, it is business. I don't know that it's sports and fun anymore like it used to be. So a lot of these travel coaches, it's a business for them. So the more kids that they can get a Division I scholarship, the better it is for that business. I mean, it is a business. I mean, especially in the softball world. I mean, it's what team is great, and they make money. I mean, these coaches are getting paid, and they're business. It's business. So you got to realize that they're trying to get Division I scholarship. They don't necessarily care about your happiness, but if you get a Division I scholarship, that in a sense makes them look good, which sells more roster spots, which their teams get bigger. So from a parent's, just realize that it's business, and a lot of times their best interest is not your son or daughter's best interest.
You know, to follow up on that, there's a comment from Bill Pruden, who is Director of College Counseling at a prep school in Chicago, and I just want to read this to you. Everything may be different for an athletic recruit, from the academic standards by which the application is measured to the adherence to published deadlines. Special treatment. One reason counselors must be the reality checker and level-headed ballast in this often emotionally turbulent process is because too often no one else will do so. Increasingly, the circle of people with an interest in students' ultimate decision is growing to almost a ridiculous degree. And based on what you said, quite simply, school sports are increasingly becoming irrelevant in terms of preparation for college careers. They are marginalized by amateur athletic union basketball, year-round swimming, select soccer, tournament tennis, showcase events in a range of different sports, summer camps in all areas, and the list goes on and on. And that's a real issue with families now that have kids that are at the elementary school level and the middle school level. I've actually had people, when we go out and do this workshop with my colleague, that say, oh, we don't even talk to the high school coach. Everybody goes and talks to the travel team coach.
Which is sad. As a coach and as a parent, I wish there was only high school sports. I wish that I could have my summers off. I wish that my daughter could play fall, winter, and spring, and I would pay. I would pay to play a high school sport if I could have my summers back. Not only as a coach, but I mean, because as a coach I'm out every weekend. I mean, I'm part of the problem because I have to go to these showcases and recruit every weekend. I wouldn't have to do it if there were only high school sports. And as a parent, now I'm doing it because my daughter wants to play, and the only time she can play is in the summer. It's really, I mean, I don't know how, it's not going to end.
Yeah.
The money's too big.
I think I had one college coach come to one high school game, and the rest of my recruiting was all at camps or festivals or.
Well, think about it. I think where it's gone is that, and it's really simple, and I'll just use soccer. So I can go to a high school game, there's 11 versus 11, 22. So I'm sitting there at an event where I'm seeing 22 players. Now you make a few subs, maybe 25, 26. Or I go to Disney Showcase and I get to see 5,000 players. Because there's that many teams at these college showcases. There's that many players. So, I mean, it is a business. It is a business. So, but for college coaches, when I was at Yale, I maybe handful, and they were all prep school, maybe one public school, high school game that I actually saw. In my first year at Western Connecticut, I saw over 20 plus high school soccer games. It's a different animal. It really is. Not to say I don't go to college showcases, because I do, but there is a market and a niche for, I would say, a lot of those D3 institutions. We tend to invest more. Obviously, being a state school, we're going to invest more locally. You know, it just makes sense. But what I do think is really important, and to kind of get back on track, is that the opportunities for student athletes comes with that balanced profile. So when you have that great academic profile coupled with really good athletics, there's going to be more opportunities. It's really that simple. So you can set that bar high, say at a Yale University or a Cornell or a Brown or any of those Division III NESCACs. Now, if you start to remove that academic profile and it starts to whittle away, those opportunities are going to start to get more narrow and narrow and narrow. And obviously, if you're not athletically inclined, there's going to be no prayer of playing at the college level. So that balanced profile think about it. I mean, it's just like in real world. If you get a master's degree, there's going to be more rewards. Get that PhD, there's going to be more of a reward. Okay, so it's the same thing in regards to this college process. So if you have that good academic profile and you're playing athletics, there's more opportunity.
The one thing about the big business is if you have a child who is Division I material and the scholarship looks good and they play Division I, it's a job. It is their job.
Good point.
And
It is a job.
the college gets their pound of flesh from your child. And I hate to say that, but it's eat, sleep, and drink the sport. And if your child can figure it out, maybe in high school, to balance and manage the social, the sport, and the academics, they'll be much, much better off. But Division I is what Caitlin wanted. My older son wanted it as well. And it's intoxicating thinking Division I and the money, but I think Division II and III schools are much more balanced. And I know colleges are very expensive now, and if you can get money for Division I, that's great. But just sort of look at the whole picture, because
You know, I want
you
to
send a 17 or 18-year-old to college.
Yeah.
They're
One
young.
of the flyers I put out is making the right choice, frequently asked questions. They're not frequently asked questions. They're the questions you should ask. And they break down into the athletic part of the university and the academic. But questions like, how long has the head coach been there? Did the athletic director and head coach get along? Are there certain majors discouraged? Does the coach limit majors because they're more time-consuming, interfering with practice, or running a greater risk of ineligibility? This is the kind of stuff that you're talking about when you go out to these high-profile programs. If you've got a son or a daughter that they're looking at, these are the kind of questions that you need to ask, because this is serious stuff. This happens at some places. So your point is well taken.
Yeah,
And the D3 programs, which, and I think you're right, people see them as sometimes less competitive. It can be a wonderful experience. It opens doors to institutions that you might normally not get into. There are some very competitive D3 programs academically, Amherst, Bates, Hamilton, etc. It can be a wonderful experience. So it's important to have your students think about all of the options.
Well, I think it's perspective. Again, someone like myself, was like, I wanted that. Like, and you mentioned, is it Caitlin? Yeah, Caitlin wanted that. She chose that. And I think it's important that the athlete or the student athlete know themselves. Like, how do you feel about your life being more micromanaged? Because that's what's going on. Because more than likely, everything is going to be mandatory. Okay, you're going to have mandatory 3 lifts. You're going to have mandatory practice. You're still going to have that one day off. Okay, during the week, during the fall. But pretty much, you're at the discretion of those college coaches. Now at D3, we have a timeline where we can't really make it mandatory due to NCAA rules. But do we want our kids to be competitive? Do we want our kids to invest? So we highly encourage them to make sure that they're doing their lifts, because we want to remain competitive. How are we going to be competitive if you're taking 3-4 months off and then picking it back up in the spring? But the reality is we can't make them. So we are going out and recruiting kids that want it. Like when we say, hey, listen, as much as we, D3, this is, quote, optional, we would like you to lift. We would like you to invest in this journey together. Now, if they have to miss it, they miss it. We understand that. We can't cut them. We're not going to cut them for it. But at the same time, I think it's important that your child, son or daughter, have a real introspective approach about, do I really want that? Do I want that experience where coaches are going to be telling me pretty much almost all the time, okay, you got this to do, you got this to do, you got this to do.
Can eat
Ours-
this, you can't eat that.
Yeah, I would just say there's more flexibility at the D3 level. The word I'd like to use is flexibility. There's more flexibility.
We made a promise when we started that we'd get a lot of questions from you folks,
Sorry.
so I think it's maybe time to open up the floor. We'll talk more, but I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask questions, so go for it, and you can direct them anywhere, or we'll just
Well,
all join
I have a
in.
comment and a question. My comment is what I think, that I'm sure you're going to get to, is that the first thing everybody has to do, if they want to do Division I or II, is they have to register with the NCAA.
Clearinghouse.
So, and a lot of the parents here who have the first-time athlete, they need to know that. I have a third. This is my third child that I'm here for. And so I knew that I had to register him with the NCAA. That's the first thing everybody has to do. It's not for Division III, I don't think. But,
No.
so when I went to register Colin for the NCAA, you have to have an eligibility number and all of that. I accidentally linked into the NCSA, which took me a really long time to figure out what that was, but it's really just what you were saying, a company that will put together a resume. And anyway, I gave them 5 minutes on the phone because, I accidentally linked in. And they said, well, your son, it's too late, and he's a junior. And then you said it. And so I'm confused about all the NCAA rules that July 7th, and then you can only have these official visits their senior year, and my son's a junior, and
That's
you're
true.
saying, and they're saying, it's too late for him to go to
As far as
Division I.
money-wise, because it's, like I said, it's business.
But
So,
I mean, is it really too late for juniors in this room to go Division I?
to a big-time Division I school that's fully funded, yes. They would, Division I.
Aren't there rules that you can't do your official visits until your
can't,
senior
you can't.
year?
You can't,
You
but you
can't.
can sign, you can verbally,
So
kids are verbaling right now, and this is sad, and obviously I'm not Division I. Kids they verbally commit to a school.
But is that a
Their
verbal?
summer of the 8th grade, and can they get out of it? Of course they can, but most kids there's kids, softball players right now in the country that have, I think at least 13, going into 9th grade, have verbal. They know where they're going as a 13 or 14-year-old.
But that's so discouraging for somebody like me who kind of knows what's going on to find out I'm behind I'm
Only
I'm too
behind,
late.
meaning your kid would have been contacted already if the school really wanted to.
But
Now, I'm
see,
not
I
talking about
didn't
low
think he should be
Division I.
contacted because I didn't think he was allowed to be
Okay,
contacted.
you should make that clear.
I mean,
There's
it's
two kinds
really,
of
it's
Division I.
really unclear on when they can contact me and when I can contact them.
Your kid becomes a recruitable athlete this summer going into their freshman year, right? The summer going in, they become a recruitable NCAA athlete.
But they can't contact him until July 7th.
But
of
that
his-
year, as a freshman, that 8th grader, that freshman can contact that coach.
Right.
And then that coach can
Right.
talk to that kid.
Right, but you're telling me that all the coaches have already contacted their recruits, but yet the rules say that, yes, I can call them, but they can't call me.
Right, so the coach will just,
They figured out a way around the
Yeah,
rules.
the system is not
They
perfect.
figured out a way.
Well, I
around
agree,
the
it's
rules.
just that I was really, the person who called me from the NCSA, which nobody, that's not what you need the NCAA, made me feel, I really challenged her, and so I was gonna come here tonight and say, isn't she full of, what, and then you said it, and I was like, oh my God.
It's just
Listen,
the
they-
perspective of, I'm not saying that Division I schools don't give out scholarships later. There's different tiers in Division I. You have your Division I, your elite, you have your middle, and then you have your lower Division I, who aren't even fully funded, so they may only have 3 or 4 scholarships to give, and they're not given full
So
rides.
this is based on scholarships, so if you're not a scholarship-seeking athlete,
You could go to Division I.
oh, well, I know, but is it too late?
To get
I have
recruited,
my son-
probably.
I've
Once
done
again,
Division I
how
and Division
proactive
III.
has your son or daughter, which was?
Well, my son is the one who's a junior.
Yeah.
What sport
I
does he
mean-
play? That's just
Swimming.
So that's
Do you have
different.
some clarity to make?
I'd like to jump into this conversation as well.
Help me.
I think what we're talking about here is that D1 kid that everyone already knows about, that person is already in high school news, that has been looked at since they were 8th grade because they're 7'2", they're 7 feet 2 in 8th grade, and they can jump the ball already when they were in 6th grade. That's the kid that is in that pipeline for a fully funded D1 program. They're going to be looked at way before. That doesn't mean there are D1 schools out there that are still going to look at athletes that aren't at that level. They're not the Final Four schools typically. Let's just say, here in the state of Connecticut, basketball is one of our sports, right? So we have women's and men's basketball at UConn. They're pretty good. And if you're going to go play for UConn, that has been a conversation for a very long time. That conversation isn't coming up in junior year unless you grew 2 feet, or you developed a skill set that is so far beyond where you were the year before that puts you into a national limelight and you become in this competition for one of these spots.
But even then, as a junior, coaches are scrambling because their money's gone. They've
Right.
already, unless they leave, they've already
Right.
promised. I mean, I was just at a recruiting a clinic a couple weeks ago with Division 1, 2, and 3, and only the twos, a couple twos, and the threes were still recruiting 15s and 16s. All the ones, they were looking at 17s. So they're done with 15s and 16s. They're looking at 17s and starting to look at 18s because and that's how they look at their schedules because of the way to stay competitive, you got to start early.
If you were confused, meaning 2017, 2000.
I know what that means.
Yeah, I just want to be
My son
clear.
graduates in 2016.
Yeah.
I know what
So,
that means.
and
But-
like your son goes to meet, so I'm not swimming, I don't recruit swimming, but I would imagine there's times, so he's on a national level, the coaches are they're just gonna go by the times and start recruiting. He could still play Division I, he's probably not gonna get money out of Division I if he hasn't already been contacted as a
Well,
junior.
I mean, my oldest son did Division III and my daughter did Division I, so I like both. I
Yeah.
see both, I love 3, I love 1, but I think that it's really sad that
I would agree with you.
everybody's saying that
I'm
it's too
wholeheartedly-
late.
And it's the same thing, which is pushing which, because you, as a 14-year-old, I don't think you know where you want to go as an 18-year-old.
My daughter wasn't, she's playing Division I lacrosse in Florida at one of the lower end Division Is. She was a walk-on and they had
Money left.
no money for her when she was a walk-on. And this year, as a sophomore, they have 1 scholarship for the entire team. And so, and she's really doing well in the team, leading scorer, whatever, but that doesn't matter. They only have 1 scholarship for the team.
It's really important to hear once again, and I was on a panel just a couple of days ago, and we said it twice, there's more money in academics. I mean, there's only 9.9 scholarships per Division I men's soccer team, 9.9. That's not even field the starting 11. And trust me, that 9.9, there's 5,000 going to him, 5,000 going to him. But to be a full scholarship athlete, you got to be, special.
And you
That's
gotta be
it.
a
You're special.
superstar.
You're going to impact them come freshman year. They know that you're going to impact them. And that's how good you have to be. It is so difficult.
Todd?
Can we come back to the divisions, D1, D2, D3? Maybe you guys could speak to, within those divisions, there's different levels of play.
Mhm.
Just because it's a
Absolutely.
D3 school doesn't mean that you could walk on there, because that could be the premier D3 school in the nation, and you might not be able to play for them. You guys talk
I
a
can
little
speak,
bit about
Division III, Tufts is a great NESCAC school, so think Ivy League, small. They have a pitcher there that's a 3-time All-American, she's about to be a senior. She's won 3 national championships, she could easily play at most Division Is. She got overlooked because she played on our 16U team rather than an 18U team, and chose to go to Tufts. Great decision for her. Could have easily played at the higher level. Could have easily been a Division I player, and maybe not got.
That's a good example.
And could have gotten some money, maybe fully funded because she was academically very smart, but chose to go to Tufts because nobody really gave her a look. She was a late bloomer, and now she's having an experience. She's a chemical engineer, going to graduate from Tufts, and has 3 national championship rings, and maybe a 4th come her senior year. So it doesn't mean that you have to. And this is where the misconception is. She's having a great experience. I don't know that she would have got the same one at Division I. She definitely would have went to 3 national championships at any Division I school in New England because it was softball. I mean, UConn women's basketball is big. There's not a lot of strong Division I schools in New England, sports specific. Maybe.
I characterize
Any
the,
other questions?
I'm sorry.
Questions? I just want- yeah.
So, after attending the showcase, and interacting with college coaches, and recognizing that all college coaches, the assistant coaches, have camps that they run. And when you get contacted by coaches that show you at the showcase, what's the percentage of the interest level versus they want you to go to a camp to get more money from you, and that process, right? How do you delineate the two?
I think you have to do your homework, because I think, like, for us, we don't make any money doing a clinic. It's strictly to get it by because Division 3 cannot do tryouts like Division 2 can. Hopefully they're going to get rid of that rule. So for us, it's like, I want you to pay the money just so you can come and get a workout with our team and get a feel for what it would be like to be at our school. So we basically charge you what we are paying for the facility. Now, some people will run camps to make money. I think most schools in Connecticut, there's a lot of rules with doing camps that we just get away from doing it. I think you have to do your homework to see, is it this person just about making money, or is it really just to get a feel for what the school is like, what it'd be like to play for that coach and that team? And you can do I think that's pretty easy homework to do.
I think it's important for you to know that when we go to a showcase, there's a profile book, okay? And that profile book I get to take home. And it's got everybody's email address, and it's got everybody's name, and I take that email address and I plug it into my database, and I shoot you that email that says, hey, I just saw you at that showcase, and I'd like you to come to our ID camp. But your son has gotten no contact from that coach prior to that event. More than likely, that is just a ploy to get him to the camp, right? So this is what I mean about, you have to be really smart and tactful about those camps that you go to. Now, if you've had prior contact with that coach where it's just like he's seen you play, you've had some rapport, now you have an idea that, hey, this is a legitimate chance for me to really go impress him. Plus, to me, there's a better opportunity to get a better feel at a university and a coach if you do that day and a half camp, because there's going to be a lot smaller number. There's only going to be about maybe 40, 50 kids. So now you can work hands-on specifically with that coach. You can go to a number of camps, 4 or 5 dayers, and they're going to have a list. Johnson & Wales is going to be there. Western's going to be there. All these coaches are going to be there, but now there's 250 kids, and they have to stagger the times. And you want to be seen by that one coach. There's no guarantee there's no guarantee that you're going to get coached by him, and there's no guarantee you're going to be seen by him, because there's just so many kids.
So the best we went to a camp and it was limited by 40 kids.
Yeah.
That's your best.
12 universities.
That's your best money.
It's best.
Your money's best spent at a camp on campus than it is at a showcase where there's lots of coaches and lots of kids, because honestly, coaches, we use it as we get to catch up with our colleagues, because it's like the meat market. There's so many kids there. It's like you can't possibly figure out if this kid's personality is going to fit your program. I mean, it gives us a contact, but it's not the end all and be all. Is I think you can get on campus and meet that coach and have a skills camp. That's the best, because you're going to know, do you like the campus too? By the time you leave, you should have a good feel. Do I fit in this place? And your money's better spent. Trust me.
I want to go back to, you brought up the point of the NCAA eligibility. I ran off the latest copies from the NCAA. The first one is for D1, and they have different rules coming in. And the other one is for D2, which is actually going to go to a sliding scale in 2018. And they are ratcheting up the GPA for D1 to a 2.3 and to D2 in 2018 to a 2.2. And people vary about when you should go in register. Some people want to do it at the end of junior year, in the summer between junior and senior year. I need to let you know that as of 2 years ago, the NCAA stopped reviewing clearinghouse applications for any student who was not on an institutional request list. Institutional request lists are for D1 and D2, and that's a list that goes in from a coach saying that I'm interested in recruiting George for soccer at Western. If George's name does not appear on an IRL, this is as of 2 years ago, they will not clear the application. And obviously, because they're assuming that means no one's recruiting you, you're not going to play, etc. But what I'm reminding you is you've already sent your $65 or your $70 or $75 in for that application, which 2 years ago generated $11.7 million for the NCAA. So Just an FYI, and there's a copy of that document on the
Wait
in
a
the
minute, so
handout.
you're saying we don't have to register for the NCAA?
No, you just have to decide when you're going to do it.
Right.
She's saying you shouldn't register unless the school's contacted you,
Unless
because you're
your,
gonna waste your money.
your child is being recruited, you don't need to file, because they're not going to be on anybody's IRL list.
Because I've had one or two coaches saying, that I've read, that said, that is step one, we will not even consider talking to you until you give us your
That's-
eligibility number.
That's wrong. Wrong. Because the
that
NCAA
came
is
from
no
a-
longer clearing every single application. They got, 2 years ago, they got 180,000 applications at $65 a pop. And I think they're overwhelmed, and they don't want to spend the time, so they developed this opportunity to use something they used internally in the past, but they always cleared all the apps. Now they will only clear the clearinghouse apps for kids whose names are on an IRL. And I called the NCAA and said, how's a student supposed to know if they're on the IRL? Well, they could call the coach and say, did you put my name on the IRL?
What does IRL stand
Institutional
for?
request list. You can Google it and it'll come up and show you in the NCAA, they'll give you an explanation for it. Todd?
I have a question for Caitlin. Caitlin, will you talk a little bit about the benefits that you like, or favorite memories of being an athlete in college? Things that you think you got to experience that maybe other students didn't because they weren't part of that program?
Well, some of my best friends still to this day are from my field hockey team, and I think that would be the case whether I went to a D3 school or a D1 school. So to all the kids, like, it really doesn't, I mean, unless your heart is set that you want to play D1 and you want to like go to the NCAA championships and you want to play at that level, if you just want to play your sport and have fun and be competitive and make friends and do what you love, it doesn't matter, D1, 2, 3. So I think that was a great experience. I think I got a lot of help in terms of my academics with being a student athlete. I had a lot of mentors and tutors, and I had a lot of, teachers help me on the road and help me throughout the process. That was really nice. I don't know. I think that traveling, I got to travel the country with playing sports, and I got to do what I loved, which, had its ups and downs, because at some points when you're a Division I athlete or a D2 or D3, like, when I graduated, I couldn't look at a field hockey stick for like 3 years. It was, I hated it. It became such a job to me, and my first coach, that's why I transferred to BC. I didn't get along with her at all. Even though I started and played every single game, it was my life, and it was really hard. It wasn't easy. It wasn't high school sports. It was every day. It was telling you what to eat, what to drink, what not to eat. And I mean, that's why you have to go into it and really get to know the coach and say, is this the right fit? Because not every D1 coach is going to be like that, or D2 or D3. So make sure you get along with him or her before, and you like their coaching style, and you're okay like being controlled every minute of every day, what to wear, everything. It's really, really overwhelming going from a 17-year-old like to this complete job making X amount of money a year because you're getting a scholarship, and then really kind of not owning you, but you are playing for them, they are paying you to play for them. So that's like a big thing to keep in mind.
One of the hardest things for my husband and myself with Caitlin was in February of her sophomore year. It was 5:30 in the morning, and it was a morning practice. And she called us and said, walk me through this, I'm quitting field hockey. And it was the most devastating thing for us to hear as parents, who from sixth grade to freshman year in college, that's all she thought about. And we walked her through it. She quit field hockey. We had no idea. She was 18 by this time, and everything worked out for her. She applied to Villanova, she applied to Boston College, and it just happened that the coach that recruited her heavily from Yale transferred to Boston College, and she got into Boston College and played her last 2 years at Boston College for the coach that she really wanted to play with in high school anyway. So, but one thing to remember in this whole process, and you put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and I can feel for you. is nothing sealed in cement. If they go to a school and they don't like it, there's always something else. You know, there's always,
That's a really good point.
I mean, nothing is.
For all students going off to college, but also especially for athletes, you know, you can say, this isn't working, I need to move on. Todd?
Sorry if I'm
Add to that.
tying up the air. Mimi, you bring up a great point about the coaches, because sometimes you could be in this recruitment process and this coach is the best fit, and then you either come to find out that they're leaving or they've already left.
Yeah.
Broken
By
leg
the time
test.
you get there and all your eggs were in that basket for that program, and the new coach that comes in, you
Right.
know, isn't a great fit.
That's that broken leg test. You can't go for the coach. But to go off, even when we were recruiting an athlete and the kid says, hey, I'm going to this school, I know I do, and I'm sure most coaches, we leave the door open, hey, good luck if anything ever happens, because it isn't set in cement. And as long as you keep good relationships with the coaches that are recruiting you, there's always other opportunities, because you are 18 and you might make a mistake. You might not, and I think it's okay to get out of that mistake and go enjoy. I mean, she had a great career and she was at 2 different schools. I mean, as long as you don't stay stuck and maybe let the school or coach take away your love for the sport, because ultimately that's why you play, right? And I think the other thing that student athletes should realize today, being a college athlete and graduating with a degree as a college athlete, you are much more marketable in today's job force, because unfortunately your generation communicates completely different. So when you're on a sport, you're forced to have to understand what teamwork is like, what leadership skills are like, which you necessarily might not be doing on an everyday basis, because technology has created more of a one-on-one communication. And I think it just puts you one notch up, that you're a student athlete who has had to deal with time management, team building, leadership, where the other student in your university has not done those things.
The NCAA, and I don't know what commercials are on television, but they do, or Nike, or one company has a phenomenal commercial on television saying we're student athletes, but they work for Exxon, or they work for, but to be a student athlete really does help, and it really does open doors.
But you also just have to make sure that you're going to a school where you're going to get a degree in something you want. And you're going somewhere where, for me, it had nursing, and I knew I was going to graduate and I was going to get a job at a school, rather than go to a, the best school in the country for that sport, or go to this awesome school because the college coach is giving you X amount of money, or because it's got the name, and then you graduate and you're not doing what you want to do because they didn't have engineering, or they didn't have whatever kind of degree you wanted.
We recruit
My
nursing
daughter's having
majors.
the same problem doing the Division I lacrosse, is that she's getting burnt down a little bit. She's in the sophomore year, but the school, she wants to do something in biology, whether it's medical or whatever, but they don't have a degree in biology at the school.
Right.
We'll
That's
transfer.
exactly what you're saying.
That's what you're
Yeah.
saying. And we recruit nursing majors specifically because, which surprised me that she played Division I sport at a high level and got to be a nursing major, because usually they won't allow you. Usually if you're going to play for them, they're paying you, they're going to be a nurse, you have to give up, you have lab, you have clinical, you're going to have to miss something at some point. So my roster is made up probably of 33% nursing majors and another 20% pre-med majors, because I know I can recruit that talented kid because they can come and play and be a nurse, or come and play and be a doctor eventually. So I think that's important.
A question about, for what, just specifically to West Palm. Can you commute and play sport and be?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it could, some coaches might want you to be on campus, but if you can save money and you're willing to stay home, why not? You're gonna be with a team, so you're gonna get that. And you're gonna have friends who live in the dorms, so why not pay less and get the same experience?
It's just the choice that you're making, and we totally understand. It's just going to be very demanding, because now you might have a class in the morning and you want to have practice until the evening. And if your commute's like 45 minutes, are you really going to go back and forth and back? And I mean, it can be quite demanding upon that student athlete. But are we okay with it? Of course we are. Statistics, because I pull.
now.
Yeah, I mean, the statistics show, I mean, I coach, soccer. Less than 3% of the student athletes, Division I, Division II, Division III, go and play professionally. Less than 3%. Okay, it's a very, very small number.
And there's another
Okay.
number that indicates that kids that are recruited, D1 and D2, that go to college to play, only 10% play for 4 years. Only 10% play for 4 years, for a variety of reasons. But it's important to say that to kids in high school, because they don't get that it's gonna be different. There's a variety of reasons why they don't play for 4 years, but only 10% last 4 years.
I think out of the 8 freshmen in my class that went into UNH, 4 graduated and played all 4 years at UNH.
I do want you to know you can get this right. I mean, some of the horror stories are when I was coaching at the Division I level, and when I was at Yale. You know, it's just like when kids left to a scholarship school, and then we end up playing them. And it's just like, hey, how you doing? How's everything going? And they're like, you know, it's okay. You know, they weren't excited about it. But you can get it right, but it just means you really got to go visit the campus, meet with the coaches, take that official visit, talk with the players. I mean, you really have to delve and invest and exhaust yourself to get as much intelligence as possible. Are you going to get it wrong sometimes? Of course, but you know, it's not necessary to transfer unless you absolutely have to.
And money's in the academics.
Could you please touch on the importance of a strong academic program in high school, that coaches really want to see that? Because I've worked with athletes before that have really thought that their athletic skills were going to get them in, and that they didn't have to focus as
It's kind
much
of
on their
just, money
academics.
is in the I mean, you're going to
So-
get more money from your academics. I mean, even at Western, we have merit scholarships. So I currently have 3 kids on my roster, 1 that's fully funded, the other 2 get their tuition entirely paid for. And because they're in the honors program, they got the merit scholarship offered to them. 2 of them are valedictorians. They probably could have went somewhere else to a private school, paid more, but they chose to come do their undergrad because they wanted to be doctors and get it paid for and then go on. And then only was it because of their academics was that offered to them. I mean, they took the hardest classes. They got a lot of classes transferred in, so they already have credit toward the degree. So it only behooves you to do that. It will hurt you, I think, in the long run, because I think there's more of you. You know, there's more athletes who are trying to play. So I think you have to compete. How do you compete? And that's with your academics. And I think
And you also talk to potential D1 athletes. It's a sliding scale.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if they have an A average, they don't have to hit the ball out of the park for the SAT. The higher the GPA, the lower the SAT can be. And now it looks like in 2018 they're going to do the same thing for D2. So get the best grades possible. You open up all the doors.
And a lot of coaches have more academic money at Division 1 and 2. They'll package. So if they only have maybe 3 scholarships to offer athletically, they might have something with their financial aid and admissions office where they can give you more money academically, so that takes less of their athletic money. So the higher your academics are, you'll still get money. It might not be athletic money, but you're still going to get more. So it's just the smart decision.
I mean, when you think about it, I mean, ultimately, whether it was Yale when I coached at Yale or Western Connecticut, the first hurdle is admittance. You know, and that means you obviously got to hit certain markers. So, when I was at Yale University, we were limited by the number of student athletes that we could recruit. We were literally going to get 5 to 6, and if you times that times 4, 5 times 4 is 20. You can't even play 11 versus 11. Okay? It was that rigorous. But at the same time, you know, we went off the 3 SATs, the 3 scores. So, you know, at Western Connecticut, we primarily look at the critical reading and math. So, you know, these are the things that you really have to start looking into. But I would just say this, just to give you a little bit of background. If you are setting that bar high, which is fine. Plus, trust when you bring up Tufts, there's probably a number of those Tufts kids that actually wanted to go where?
Harvard.
Yale, Harvard, Princeton. But the reality is we can't get everybody in. So it's not that it's a drawback, but the reality is, I mean, we're going to sit there and we're going to prioritize we really have to prioritize our needs. So, but now you're getting Division I level kids playing at the Division III level. My experience with Division III, there's a high level, which is about 15%, and there's a low level of about 15%, and there is a ton of us that are in that 70%, that middle range. That's my perception of Division III right now. But what I would tell you from an academic standpoint, course rigor ultimately is number 1, and I'm speaking from an Ivy League experience, higher than the SATs. we appreciated that course rigor. Okay, so the APs and those honor courses carried a tremendous amount of weight. In those scores, those AP scores, the preference was 4 to 5s. Okay, 3s were okay, but 4 to 5s were the preference when you took those AP exams. And if you were taking an SAT, when you had to do the that third SAT, okay, don't overcomplicate it. Take whatever you're best at and hit a home run. And the average marker that we would give our student athletes that we were recruiting over there was 650 plus in each category. And that was for athletes, 650 plus in each one of those categories.
Do you, I have a comment about the scores, because my daughter went to Yale, and she submitted only her ACTs.
Yeah.
She never even submitted her SATs.
That's
and I think that
legitimate.
some
That's
people don't
legitimate.
really
Do that.
realize the
That's
power
fine.
of an ACT. You know, they're very different scores, and, you know,
Certain schools will
Fine.
combine
Yeah.
too and take the best ones. Like
Mhm.
at Western, we'll take if you do well in the
well,
math.
she didn't
and-
even submit her
and-
SAT, and they were good, but they weren't as good as her ACT.
But
So-
they'll cross-reference, say you do really well in the English or the verbal
So
on the
that-
SAT and really well in the math on the ACT, they'll take those two and combine them.
Once
At our
again,
school.
are you exhausting every opportunity to get what you want? So some kids, they just struggle with the SAT.
Right, it's a hard-
Sitting there for
it-
4 hours, it's just real difficult. So sometimes the ACT may work better for them. So it's how you approach it. If you go to our Western website, it's going to say we want 500 critical reading, 500 math, and those are just the baselines. And we're looking for a B minus.
But does it say what you want for ACTs?
I'm not sure, does it?
don't know.
I don't think it
I
mentions
wonder
it.
why.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't think it mentions it on our
They'll
website.
convert the ACT.
But they'll
score
convert
for you.
it. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Oh,
Yes.
My daughter just told me not too long ago that she loves, well, she plays a bunch of sports, but she loves soccer, she wants to play, and she's thinking of playing, she would like to play in college, which was sort of a surprise to me. And I said, well, you might have to play club, and she's okay with that. But how do you get a sense, I have no idea if she even could play at a D3 school. Do you think coaches are a way to ask? Do you need to do something in the summer to
No, I think you
have
can
you be evaluated
I-
before we go through all the hoops?
What
of
year is
signing
she?
up?
Well, yeah, let's put
She's
that.
sophomore.
have a coach, tell her to contact a college coach or college coach that she might want to go academically. And most coaches will come and see your daughter play, and they'll
Really?
hopefully, yes. Well, I mean, that's what I do. I mean, especially if you're talking. It depends the school and the university, but as far as us, I will go see kids play in high school, and I'll assess them. I'll let them know this is what I think. Now you take that for what it's worth. Do you want to sit the bench for 2 years and be part of something your junior, senior, or you can come in right away and play? It might not be division. I mean, most coaches will be honest.
Where does your daughter play?
For the school.
Just at the high school, okay? And I hate to say just, but as college
Right.
coaches, again, when we think about our sport and how competitive we are, a big priority is this a year-round kid? Or is it just somebody that's playing high school?
Well, and maybe you can tell me if this matters. She plays 3 varsity sports for her school.
That's
and then
awesome.
she
She's an athlete.
plays-
Yeah, she's an
She
athlete.
plays 3 other sports in the summer.
D3s are going to definitely be
Her-
definitely going to be more prone to finding acceptance in that. D1s are going to be like, no, we want year-round soccer
She might not
players.
get recruited for soccer at a higher level, but she
Yeah.
might be a great Division III soccer player. I had an All-American, a 2-time All-American softball player, an outfielder. She never played travel softball because she played travel basketball, right? And she came to WestCon and played basketball and softball and excelled. Really, I mean, she was an athlete, but she never played softball outside of playing for her high school team. So the quick answer is yes, and more than likely she's playing 3 sports, and she's a standout in those 3 sports. She's probably an athlete. She probably can excel.
And I played 3 sports here, and I just, would go on the weekends and go play field hockey, or in the summer I would go to camps and, play on little teams in Connecticut. So she still can play those 3 sports and, excel at them, and then also play soccer in college.
More opportunities at the D3 level to be a multi-sport athlete. It's very difficult at the Division I level.
Well, yeah.
Any other questions?
That's a good question.
All right, I'd like to wrap it up at this point and thank the panel for coming. So thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.
Sneaky little questions you want to ask us.
Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. I hope you learned a lot.